The alien research ship moved slowly through the dark space near the edge of the galaxy. Commander Vexhai stood on the bridge, his 4 eyes scanning the star charts that floated in front of him. His people, the Zephyrians, had been exploring this region for months, looking for new worlds and new forms of life. "Commander," called out scanner operator Hexty from her station. "I'm picking up something strange on the long-range sensors." Vexhai turned his tall, thin body toward her. His skin had a blue tint that grew darker when he was excited or worried. Right now it was getting darker. "What kind of strange?" "It looks like a ship, sir. But it's not moving. It's just floating out there." Hexty's fingers moved quickly over her control panel. "The design doesn't match anything in our database." The commander walked over to her station. On the screen, he could see a dark shape against the stars. It was clearly artificial, but it looked different from any ship the Zephyrians had ever seen. Most alien ships they knew were smooth and curved, built for efficiency and beauty. This ship looked rough and angular, like someone had built it for war rather than exploration. "How big is it?" Vexhai asked. "About twice the size of our ship, Commander." "Maybe bigger." Hexty zoomed in on the image. "I'm seeing lots of damage on the hull. Burn marks, holes, twisted metal. This ship has been in a serious fight." Dr. Zexara, the ship's chief scientist, joined them at the scanner station. She was shorter than the commander, with pale green skin and 6 arms that she used to operate multiple instruments at once. "This is fascinating," she said, her voice filled with excitement. "We've never captured an intact alien warship before. Is it really intact?" Vexhai wanted to know. "You said there was damage." "Yes, but the main structure is still whole. Most of the ship appears to be sealed. If we can get inside, we might learn incredible things about whoever built it." Dr. Zexara's skin was turning a bright yellow color, which happened when she was very excited about a discovery. The commander thought for a moment. His people were peaceful explorers, not warriors. They studied other species to understand them, not to fight them. But this was an opportunity that might never come again. "Can we scan the ship more closely?" "Already doing it, sir," Hexty replied. "I'm not detecting any life signs, but there are some energy readings. Very faint. It looks like some systems are still working on emergency power." "Emergency power." Dr. Zexara moved closer to the screen. "That means someone might have survived the battle and activated the ship's emergency systems before whatever happened to them." Vexhai felt a chill run through his body. The idea of finding survivors from an unknown species should have been exciting. But something about this ship made him nervous. The design was so different, so aggressive looking. "What can you tell me about the weapons?" Hexter ran another scan. "That's the strange part, Commander. I can detect weapon systems, but they don't match anything we know. The energy signatures are completely unfamiliar. It's like whoever built this ship uses a totally different approach to warfare. Different how? I can't tell from this distance. We'd need to get much closer, maybe even board the ship to understand their technology." The commander looked around his bridge. His crew were all scientists and explorers. They had some basic defensive systems, but they weren't fighters. If this unknown ship was dangerous, they might not be able to protect themselves. But the scientific value of studying an alien warship could change everything they knew about the galaxy. "Dr. Zexara, what's your professional opinion? Is this worth the risk?" The scientist's skin was now bright yellow with excitement. "Commander, in my entire career, I've never had a chance like this. We've studied ruins and artifacts, but never a complete military vessel from an unknown species. The things we could learn, their technology, their culture, their way of thinking about warfare. It could revolutionize our understanding of how different species develop. And the risks? Well, the ship appears to be dead in space. No active weapons, no movement, no communications. Even if there are survivors, they're probably too weak to be a threat. Our medical bay could help them, and in return they might share information with us." Vexhai nodded slowly. Dr. Zexara was one of the most brilliant scientists in the Zephyrian fleet. If she thought this was safe, he trusted her judgment. "Very well. Take us closer, but keep our shields up and weapons ready, just in case." "Yes, sir," Hexty responded, and the research ship began moving toward the mysterious vessel. As they got closer, more details became visible on their screens. The unknown ship was indeed massive, with thick armor plating that looked like it could survive incredible amounts of damage. Strange symbols were painted on the hull, clearly some kind of writing system, but unlike anything in their translation databases. "Commander," called out Communications Officer Rex Via from his station. "I'm picking up a very weak signal from the ship. It might be an automated distress call. Can you translate it?" "Not yet, sir. The language is completely unknown, but the signal pattern suggests it's on repeat, probably activated automatically when the ship was damaged." Dr. Zexara was studying the hull design on her personal scanner. "The construction is fascinating," she said. "Look at how thick that armor is. Most civilized species build ships for speed and efficiency. This looks like it was built to take tremendous punishment and keep fighting." "What does that tell us about whoever built it?" Vexhai asked. "Either they face incredibly dangerous enemies or they are incredibly dangerous themselves." The doctor paused, then added, "Or both." The commander felt that chill again. But they had come too far to turn back now. "Prepare a boarding party. Full environmental suits and scanning equipment. I want to know everything about this ship and whoever built it." "Sir," Hexty interrupted, "I'm detecting something else. The ship's internal structure is strange. Most vessels have logical layouts with clear sections for different functions. This ship seems to have multiple redundant systems, like whoever built it expected major parts of it to be destroyed in battle." "Redundant systems?" "Yes, sir. Multiple power sources, multiple computer cores, multiple life support systems. It's like they designed it to keep functioning even after taking massive damage." Dr. Zexara looked up from her scanner. "That level of redundancy suggests a species that has extensive experience with warfare. They've learned from many battles and many losses." As their ship moved into position next to the unknown vessel, Vexhai couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to discover something that would change everything. The damaged warship hung in space like a sleeping monster, its dark hull reflecting their ship's lights in strange patterns. "Boarding party ready?" "Commander," reported Security Chief Kexmore. "Remember," Vexhai told his crew, "we're here to learn, not to judge. Whatever we find on that ship, we approach it with scientific curiosity and respect for the beings who built it." But deep inside, he wondered if respect would be enough when they came face to face with a technology and culture so focused on war that it had built this floating fortress. The discovery was about to begin, and none of them were prepared for what they would find. Dr. Zexara stepped carefully through the airlock that connected their ship to the unknown vessel. Her environmental suit felt heavy, and her breathing sounded loud in her helmet. Behind her, 3 other scientists followed, all carrying scanning equipment and recording devices. The first thing she noticed was how different everything looked. Zephyrian ships had smooth, curved walls that glowed with soft light. This ship had straight lines, sharp corners, and surfaces made of some kind of dark metal. The walls were thick, much thicker than necessary for a normal spaceship. "The air is still breathable," reported scientist Nexthan, checking his atmosphere scanner. "Oxygen-nitrogen mix similar to what many species use, but the pressure is higher than normal." Dr. Zexara nodded and activated her recording device. "Beginning initial survey of unknown vessel. The corridor construction is unlike anything we've seen before. The walls appear to be made of multiple layers of different metals." She ran her scanner along the wall and frowned. "That's strange. My scanner can't penetrate very deep into the hull material. It's like the metal is designed to block scanning attempts." "Maybe it's just very dense," suggested technician Lexuri. "No, I don't think so. Look at this." Dr. Zexara pointed her scanner at a section of wall that had been damaged in the battle. Where the outer layer was torn away, she could see that the hull wasn't just thick metal. It was made of many thin layers, each one different from the others. It's like they built the ship to protect against every possible type of weapon. The team moved deeper into the ship, following a main corridor that led toward the center. Emergency lighting cast red shadows on the walls, making everything look ominous. The floor was covered with a rough material that provided good grip even in zero gravity. "Dr. Zexara," called Nexthon from behind her. "You need to see this." She turned around to find him studying a section of wall where some kind of damage control system had activated. A hole in the hull had been sealed with a metallic foam that had hardened into a patch. "The ship repaired itself?" she asked. "It looks like it, but not with any technology, I understand. This foam appears to be some kind of emergency sealant that activates automatically when the hull is breached." Nexthon took a sample with his collection tool. "The chemical composition is incredibly simple, but it's stronger than our best armor materials." Dr. Zexara felt a growing sense of unease. Most advanced species used sophisticated technology to solve problems: force fields, energy barriers, complex computer systems. But whoever built this ship seemed to prefer simple, brutal solutions that just worked. They reached a junction where several corridors met. Signs on the walls were written in the same strange symbols they had seen on the hull. The writing was angular and harsh like the rest of the ship's design. "Can you make any sense of the language?" Dr. Zexara asked Nexthon, who specialized in alien communications. "Not yet, but the symbols are very basic. Most advanced species develop flowing artistic writing systems. This looks more like it was designed for quick reading under stress." He took pictures of several signs. "Notice how the letters are large and bold, easy to see even in poor lighting or emergency conditions." They chose the corridor that seemed to lead toward the engineering section, following signs with symbols that looked like power sources. As they walked, Dr. Zexara noticed more things that troubled her. The ship's design wasn't elegant or efficient like Zephyrian technology. Instead, everything was built to be tough and reliable. "Look at these conduits," she said, pointing to pipes and cables that ran along the walls. "They're not hidden inside the walls like normal ships. They're mounted on the outside where they can be easily accessed and repaired." "That's smart," said Lexuri. "If something breaks during battle, the crew can fix it quickly without tearing apart the ship's structure." "Yes, but it also means whoever built this ship expects things to break often. Most civilized species build systems that don't fail. These people build systems that are easy to fix when they do fail." They reached the engineering section and Dr. Zexara stopped in amazement. The power core was unlike anything she had ever seen. Instead of a clean, contained fusion reactor like Zephyrian ships used, this was a massive, crude-looking device that filled most of the room. "By the stars," whispered Nexthon. "Look at the size of that thing." The reactor was enormous, with thick pipes carrying coolant and massive magnetic containment coils that sparked occasionally. Warning signs covered every surface, and the radiation levels were much higher than any civilized species would tolerate. "This is impossible," Dr. Zexara said, scanning the reactor with her instruments. "The containment field is fluctuating wildly. Any reasonable safety protocol would shut this system down immediately. But it's still working," pointed out Lexuri. "Look at the power output readings. It's generating more energy than our entire ship uses." Dr. Zexara studied the reactor design more carefully. The engineering was primitive by Zephyrian standards, but it was also incredibly robust. Where her people would use delicate control systems and precise calibration, this reactor used brute force and massive safety margins. "It's like they built it to keep working even when everything goes wrong," she realized. "Look at these backup systems. There are backups for the backups and backups for those." The control panel was covered with switches and gauges instead of the smooth touch interfaces that advanced species preferred. Labels were written in that same harsh script, but many of them had been translated into other languages, as if this ship regularly worked with different species. "Dr. Zexara," called technician Lexuri from across the room. "You need to see this maintenance log." She walked over to where Lexuri was studying a computer terminal that was still working on emergency power. The screen showed a long list of repairs and maintenance operations. "I can't read the language, but look at the frequency of these entries," Lexuri explained. "There are new entries almost every day, and many of them seem to be repairs from battle damage." Dr. Zexara looked at the timestamps and felt her stomach turn cold. If she was reading the alien numbering system correctly, this ship had been in combat dozens of times in just the past few months. Most Zephyrian vessels went their entire service lives without seeing a single battle. "These aren't explorers," she said quietly. "They're professional warriors." The team spent another hour documenting the engineering section, and every discovery made Dr. Zexara more worried. The ship's builders had solved every problem with the simplest, most direct approach possible. They didn't care about elegance or efficiency. They only cared about what worked in battle. The reactor design was dangerous by any civilized standard, but it was also nearly impossible to disable. The hull was crude and heavy, but it could absorb incredible amounts of damage. The control systems were primitive, but they would keep working even if most of the ship was destroyed. "We need to see more of this ship," Dr. Zexara told her team, "but I'm starting to think we've discovered something very dangerous." "Dangerous how?" asked Nexthon. "Most species develop technology to make life easier and safer. These people have developed technology to make war more effective." She looked around the reactor room one more time. "Everything here is designed with one purpose: to destroy enemies and survive being destroyed in return." As they prepared to move to the next section of the ship, Dr. Zexara wondered what other terrible discoveries awaited them. The engineering section had shown her a species that approached technology with a completely different philosophy than any known civilization. They weren't interested in beauty, efficiency, or safety. They were interested in winning wars, and from what she could see, they were very good at it. Chief Analyst Kexmore had studied alien weapons technology for most of his career. As the team's military specialist, he was responsible for understanding how different species approached warfare. But as he stood at the entrance to the unknown ship's weapons bay, he felt completely unprepared for what he was seeing. The bay was enormous, taking up nearly a quarter of the ship's internal space. Rows of weapons lined the walls, and ammunition storage units filled the center of the room. But these weren't like any weapons Kexmore had ever encountered. "Commander Vexhai," he spoke into his communicator with a shaking voice. "I need backup down here, and I think you should see this yourself." "What's wrong, Kexmore?" came the commander's voice through the comm system. "Sir, I'm not sure how to explain this. The weapons, they're not designed like anything we know. I think we may have made a terrible mistake boarding this ship." While waiting for the commander to arrive, Kexmore activated his recording equipment and began documenting what he saw. The first weapon system he examined looked like a massive tube with mechanical components that reminded him of ancient projectile weapons. But this was clearly much more advanced and deadly. "Recording analysis of weapon system number 1, he said to his recorder. "This appears to be some kind of kinetic accelerator. But unlike the precision weapons used by civilized species, this seems designed to cause maximum destruction rather than disable enemy vessels." He moved closer and read the markings on the weapon. The alien text was accompanied by symbols that he was beginning to understand, numbers that probably indicated projectile velocity, impact force, and range. The numbers were terrifying. A smaller weapon nearby caught his attention. It was clearly designed to be carried by individual soldiers rather than mounted on the ship, but when he scanned it, his instruments showed energy levels that could penetrate any personal armor he knew of. These aren't defensive weapons, he realized, speaking to himself as much as to his recorder. Every single weapon system I can see is designed for attack, for causing maximum damage to enemies. Commander Vexhai arrived with Dr. Zexara and 2 security officers. When they saw Kexmore's expression, they all stopped at the entrance to the weapons bay. "By the sacred stars," whispered the commander. "How many weapons does one ship need?" "That's just it, sir," Kexmore replied. "I don't think this is just one ship's weapons. I think this entire vessel is designed around its weapon systems. Everything else, the crew quarters, the engineering section, even the life support, it's all built to support these weapons." Dr. Zexara approached one of the larger weapon systems and ran her scanner over it. "The construction is similar to what we saw in engineering. Simple, robust, and designed to keep working under extreme conditions." Kexmore led them deeper into the weapons bay, showing them system after system. "Look at this one," he said, pointing to a weapon that was clearly designed to fire multiple projectiles rapidly. The rate of fire indicators suggest it can launch hundreds of rounds per minute. "What kind of enemy requires that much firepower?" asked one of the security officers. "That's what worries me," Kexmore replied. "Either they face enemies that are incredibly tough, or they prefer to completely overwhelm their opponents rather than just defeat them." They found storage areas filled with ammunition that made Kexmore's blood run cold. The projectiles weren't designed to disable or capture. They were designed to destroy completely. Some were clearly explosive, with chemical compositions that would cause massive secondary damage. Others were solid metal slugs designed to punch through heavy armor. "Commander," said Dr. Zexara, studying a computer terminal near the ammunition storage, "I'm seeing inventory records here. According to these numbers, this ship was carrying enough ammunition to destroy dozens of enemy vessels, or one very large target," added Kexmore grimly. The most disturbing discovery came when they found a section of the weapons bay that contained different types of weapons entirely. These weren't ship-to-ship weapons at all. They were designed for attacking planets. "Sir," Kexmore called the commander over to a massive weapon system that was clearly designed for orbital bombardment. "This weapon appears to be designed for surface attacks. The power requirements and targeting system suggest it could destroy large areas of a planet's surface." Commander Vexhai stared at the weapon in horror. "Are you saying this ship could attack civilian populations?" "Not just could, sir. Look at these targeting computers. Kexmore activated one of the terminals that was still running on emergency power. The targeting system has databases of population centers, industrial facilities, and infrastructure targets. This isn't just a military weapon. It's designed for total warfare. Dr. Zexara found a manual near the orbital bombardment weapon and tried to translate some of the text using her portable computer. The language is difficult, but I think this section is about strategic bombing and infrastructure denial. These terms suggest a military philosophy focused on destroying an enemy's ability to support their war effort. That includes civilian targets, realized Kexmore. Most civilized species follow rules of warfare that protect non-combatants. But whoever built this ship seems to view everything as a legitimate target. They discovered that the weapons bay had its own dedicated power systems, separate from the main reactor. The weapons could continue operating even if the rest of the ship was severely damaged. There were also automated loading systems that could prepare and fire the weapons with minimal crew involvement. "Look at this," said Dr. Zexara, pointing to a control station. "The weapon systems can be operated by just a few people, but they can cause destruction that would normally require an entire fleet." Near one of the control stations, they found text etched into the metal hull. When Dr. Zexara's translation computer processed it, the result made everyone step back in shock. "Peace through superior firepower," she read aloud. "That's their military philosophy. They believe that having overwhelming, destructive capability is the path to peace." Kexes Moore studied more of the weapon systems and found evidence that the ship's builders had encountered many different enemy species. The weapons were designed to be effective against a wide variety of targets: energy shields, physical armor, biological threats, and even electronic warfare systems. "They've fought many different enemies," he reported to the commander, "and they've learned from each encounter. These weapons represent the accumulated knowledge of many battles against many different species, which means they're very experienced at warfare," added Dr. Zexara. The team found maintenance logs that showed the weapons had been used recently and frequently. Ammunition had been expended and replaced multiple times. Some weapons showed wear patterns indicating extensive use. "Commander," said Kexmore, his voice filled with worry, "I don't think this ship was part of a defensive fleet. Based on the weapons configuration and ammunition types, I believe this vessel was designed for offensive operations, attacking enemy territory, destroying enemy installations, and eliminating opposition completely." "You mean they're invaders?" "More than that, sir. They're a species that has turned warfare into a science. Every weapon here represents a different approach to destroying enemies. They don't just fight wars, they study how to fight wars better." As they prepared to leave the weapons bay, Commander Vexhai took one last look around. "How does a species develop technology like this?" "Only one way, sir," replied Kexmore. "Through extensive experience with warfare. A species would need to fight many enemies many times, over many years to develop this level of military sophistication. And they would need to win those wars," added Dr. Zexara quietly. The implications were terrifying. They had discovered a species that was not only experienced at warfare but successful at it. A species that had built ships capable of destroying entire fleets or entire cities. A species that viewed overwhelming destructive power as the foundation of peace. As they left the weapons bay, Kexmore wondered what other terrible discoveries awaited them in the rest of the ship. But he was beginning to suspect that the weapons were just the beginning of humanity's terrifying capabilities. Xenobiologist Lexuri had studied the medical practices of dozens of different alien species throughout her career. She had seen how various civilizations approached healing, medicine, and the treatment of injuries. But as she entered the medical bay of the unknown warship, she quickly realized that nothing had prepared her for what she was about to discover. The medical bay was larger than she expected, taking up significant space on the ship. But unlike the clean, sterile medical facilities she was used to, this space looked more like a battlefield surgery center. The equipment was robust and practical, designed to function under extreme conditions. Beginning examination of medical facilities, she spoke into her recorder as she activated her scanning equipment. Initial observation: the medical bay appears designed for trauma surgery rather than general health care. The first thing that caught her attention was a surgical table in the center of the room. It was made of metal and could be adjusted into dozens of different positions. But what disturbed her were the restraints built into the table. heavy straps and clamps that could hold down even a struggling patient. Her scanner detected traces of various chemicals on the table surface. When she analyzed them, she found blood from multiple different species, along with chemical residues that suggested extensive surgical procedures had been performed here. The surgical table shows evidence of recent use, she recorded. Chemical analysis indicates procedures involving trauma surgery, amputation, and emergency organ repair. The restraint system suggests that some procedures may have been performed on conscious patients. Moving to the medical equipment, Lexuri found tools that made her stomach turn. Where most civilized species use precise energy instruments for surgery, these people seem to prefer physical tools, saws for cutting through bone, clamps for stopping bleeding, and extraction tools for removing foreign objects from wounds. The surgical instruments are primitive by most standards, she continued her recording, but they appear designed for field conditions where advanced technology might not be available. Many tools show signs of repeated sterilization and heavy use. A cabinet filled with medical supplies revealed another disturbing aspect of this species' approach to medicine. Instead of the sophisticated healing compounds that most advanced civilizations used, these people relied on simple but effective drugs and treatments, pain medication that was clearly designed to be administered quickly during combat, blood clotting agents that could seal wounds in seconds, stimulants that could keep injured soldiers conscious and fighting despite serious injuries. The medical supplies emphasize battlefield medicine over comprehensive health care, Lexuri noted. The focus appears to be on keeping soldiers functional during combat, rather than complete healing. She found a computer terminal that was still functioning and managed to access some medical records. What she read made her question everything she thought she knew about intelligent species and their relationship with pain and injury. The record showed soldiers returning to combat duty after suffering injuries that would permanently disable most alien species. Lost limbs were replaced with mechanical prosthetics, and the soldiers continued fighting. Severe burns were treated and healed, only for the soldiers to volunteer for equally dangerous missions. Medical records indicate that members of this species routinely return to combat after suffering traumatic injuries. She recorded, her voice shaking slightly. Recovery times are much shorter than should be biologically possible. But the most disturbing discovery came when she found psychological profiles included with the medical records. Many of the soldiers described in these files had been injured multiple times, yet they continued to volunteer for the most dangerous missions available. One file described a soldier who had been wounded in combat 7 different times, including losing an arm and suffering severe burns. The psychological evaluation noted that this individual was eager to return to combat and had requested assignment to high-risk operations. Psychological profiles suggest that many individuals in this species actually seek out dangerous combat situations, Lexuri recorded. This contradicts everything we know about normal survival instincts. She found evidence of chemical enhancement programs that shocked her. Detailed records showed that this species had developed drugs that could temporarily increase physical strength, reduce pain sensitivity, and enhance aggression. These battle stimulants were regularly administered to soldiers before combat operations. Chemical enhancement records indicate systematic use of combat drugs, she reported. These substances appear designed to suppress normal fear responses and increase violent behavior. The side effects are severe, but the soldiers volunteer for these treatments. The medical bay contained specialized equipment for treating radiation exposure, chemical poisoning, and severe burns, all injuries that suggested regular exposure to extremely dangerous weapons. But what troubled Lexuri most was how routine these treatments appeared to be. The medical facility is clearly designed to handle mass casualties from weapons of mass destruction, she observed. The frequency of use suggests that exposure to such weapons is a regular occurrence for this species. She discovered that the medical staff were trained not just in healing, but in keeping soldiers functional during ongoing combat operations. There were procedures for temporary repairs that would allow wounded soldiers to continue fighting until the battle was over and proper medical treatment could be provided. Medical procedures include battlefield stabilization techniques that prioritize combat, effectiveness over patient comfort or long-term health. Lexuri recorded with growing horror. A section of the medical bay was dedicated to prosthetic limbs and replacement organs. But these weren't just medical devices. They were enhanced versions of natural body parts. artificial arms that were stronger than biological ones, replacement eyes with enhanced vision capabilities, and synthetic organs that could function in environments that would kill normal biology. The prosthetic technology suggests that this species views injury as an opportunity for enhancement rather than a disability to be overcome, she noted. Perhaps most disturbing were the psychiatric medications she found. Instead of drugs designed to help soldiers recover from the psychological trauma of warfare, these medications seemed designed to make soldiers more effective in combat. Anti-anxiety drugs that eliminated fear without reducing alertness, mood stabilizers that prevented emotional breakdown during extended combat operations. Psychiatric medications appear designed to create better soldiers rather than healthier individuals, Lexuri recorded. The focus is on maintaining combat effectiveness rather than psychological well-being. She found training materials that described how medical personnel should prioritize treatment based on a soldier's potential to return to combat rather than the severity of their injuries. Soldiers with critical injuries who could be quickly patched up and sent back to battle received treatment first, while those with less serious but more time-consuming injuries had to wait. Medical triage protocols prioritize combat readiness over standard medical ethics, she observed. The primary goal appears to be maintaining military strength rather than saving lives. As Lexuri prepared to leave the medical bay, she reviewed her findings with a growing sense of dread. This wasn't just a species that fought wars, it was a species that had adapted biologically and psychologically to excel at warfare. They had turned injury and pain into tools for creating better warriors. Conclusion of medical bay examination. She spoke into her recorder. This species has developed a medical philosophy that treats warfare as a natural state of existence. Their medicine is designed not to prevent conflict, but to make their people more effective in conflict. She realized that she had discovered something unprecedented in the galaxy, a species that had weaponized not just technology, but their own biology. They had turned their medical knowledge into another way to gain advantage in warfare. The implications were terrifying. If this species could turn injury into enhancement and pain into motivation, what other aspects of existence had they adapted for warfare? As she headed toward her next investigation, Lexuri wondered if there was any part of this species' culture that wasn't focused on becoming better at destroying their enemies. Cultural specialist Nexthan had always believed that studying a species' personal belongings was the best way to understand their true nature. Governments and military forces might present an official image, but the things people kept in their private spaces revealed who they really were. As he entered the crew quarters section of the human warship, he hoped to find evidence that this species had a peaceful side beneath their military exterior. He was about to be horribly disappointed. The crew quarters were arranged in a practical manner, with small private rooms for individual crew members and larger spaces for group activities. Unlike the sterile efficiency of the weapons bay and medical facilities, these areas showed signs of personal decoration and individual personality. Beginning cultural analysis of crew living spaces, Nexthan spoke into his recorder as he entered the first private room. Initial observation: the personal spaces are small but efficiently organized. Clear evidence of long-term habitation. The first room belonged to someone who was clearly a senior officer, based on the size and extra furnishings. A desk held several items that immediately caught Nexthan's attention. Photographs showed groups of humans in military uniforms, smiling and celebrating together. But what disturbed him was the context of these celebrations. Personal photographs show groups celebrating what appear to be military victories, he recorded. The individuals appear happy and proud, suggesting that military success is a source of personal satisfaction for this species. One photograph showed a group of humans standing in front of what was clearly a destroyed enemy installation. Smoke and flames filled the background, but the humans in the foreground were smiling and embracing each other. Someone had written text across the bottom of the image, which his translation computer rendered as "Mission accomplished. Sector 7 neutralized." The humans appear to celebrate the destruction of enemy facilities, Nexthan noted with growing unease. This suggests that warfare is viewed as a positive activity rather than a necessary evil. A personal letter on the desk provided even more disturbing insights. The translation was rough, but Nexthan could make out enough to understand the content. It was a message from someone's family back home, congratulating them on a successful military campaign, and expressing pride in their service. Family correspondence indicates that military service is viewed with honor and pride by human society, he recorded. Parents and relatives express approval and support for combat operations, suggesting cultural acceptance of warfare. He found a collection of books and entertainment materials that shocked him. Where most civilized species entertainment focused on art, science, philosophy, or peaceful adventure, these humans seemed to prefer stories about conflict and warfare. The books had titles like The Art of War, Victory Through Strategy, and Heroes of the Galactic Campaign. When he sampled the content, he found detailed discussions of military tactics, historical battles, and strategies for defeating enemies. Entertainment materials focus heavily on military themes, Nexthon observed. Literature appears to celebrate warfare and treat combat as an honorable profession. This suggests deep cultural integration of military values. Moving to another crew member's room, he found even more evidence of humanity's relationship with warfare. Personal decorations included medals and awards for military service, weapons that were clearly ceremonial rather than functional, and artwork depicting famous battles. One wall display showed a collection of patches and insignia from different military units. Each patch had a unique design, often featuring aggressive imagery like snarling animals, weapons, or skulls. The names were equally aggressive: Death's Head Squadron, Iron Wolves, Stormbreakers. Military unit names and insignia emphasize violent and aggressive imagery, he recorded. This suggests that humans not only accept warfare, but embrace it as part of their identity. A personal diary provided the most disturbing insights yet. The entries described daily life aboard the warship. But what shocked Nexthon was the casual attitude toward violence and destruction. The human who wrote the diary discussed combat operations with the same tone that other species might use to describe routine work tasks. Enemy convoy spotted at 0800 hours. Engaged and destroyed by 0830. No casualties on our side. Good day overall. Looking forward to shore leave next week. Personal writings indicate that humans view combat operations as routine work, rather than traumatic experiences, Nexthon noted. The emotional tone suggests satisfaction with successful military operations. In the ship's common areas, he found evidence of how humans spent their free time. Games and entertainment focused on strategy and competition. Many games simulated military scenarios, allowing players to practice warfare even during their relaxation time. Recreational activities include military strategy games and competitive combat simulations, he observed. Humans appear to enjoy warfare-related activities even during leisure time. The ship's library contained an extensive collection of military history, tactical manuals, and strategic studies. But it also included works of philosophy and ethics that attempted to justify warfare as necessary and honorable. These books argued that sometimes violence was the only way to achieve peace and protect innocent lives. Philosophical works attempt to provide moral justification for warfare, Nexthon recorded. Human ethics appear to accept violence as morally correct under certain circumstances. Perhaps most disturbing were the personal religious items he found. Several crew members had small shrines or prayer areas in their rooms, but these weren't dedicated to gods of peace and harmony. Instead, they honored deities of war and victory. Prayer books contained requests for strength in battle, protection during combat, and victory over enemies. One prayer read, "Grant us the power to defeat our foes and the wisdom to strike swiftly and decisively. May our enemies know fear and our allies know victory." Religious practices incorporate military themes, he noted with growing horror. Humans appear to believe that their gods support and encourage warfare. Children's items found in some personal lockers provided the most chilling evidence of how deeply warfare was embedded in human culture. Toys designed to look like weapons, games that taught military strategy, and storybooks about heroic soldiers and great battles. Child-rearing materials indicate that humans teach warfare concepts to their young, Nexthon recorded. Military themes are integrated into childhood education and entertainment. A letter from someone's child showed drawings of spaceships and battles, with stick figures labeled as Mommy and Daddy, fighting against bad aliens. The child had written, "I want to be a soldier like you when I grow up." Children express desire to follow parents into military careers, he observed. This suggests that military service is viewed as an aspirational career choice rather than an unfortunate necessity. Educational materials showed that human schools taught military history as a regular subject. Children learned about famous battles, great military leaders, and strategic principles alongside mathematics and science. Military service was presented as both patriotic duty and personal honor. Formal education includes extensive military history and strategic thinking, Nexthon noted. Warfare is taught as a legitimate and important aspect of civilization. As he completed his survey of the crew quarters, Nexthon felt sick. He had hoped to find evidence that humans were peaceful people, forced into warfare by circumstances. Instead, he had discovered a species that had made warfare a central part of their culture, their entertainment, their religion, and even their child-rearing practices. Cultural analysis conclusion. He spoke into his recorder with a shaking voice. This species has integrated warfare into every aspect of their society. Military values permeate their entertainment, education, family relationships, and religious practices. They do not fight because they must. They fight because their entire culture has evolved around the concept of warfare. The implications were terrifying. This wasn't a species that occasionally went to war when necessary. This was a species that had built their entire civilization around the idea that conflict was natural, honorable, and necessary. They didn't just have warriors, they were warriors from birth to death, in every aspect of their lives. As Nexthon prepared his report for Commander Vexhai, he realized they had discovered something unprecedented in the galaxy, a species that had made warfare not just their profession, but their identity. And if their personal effects were any indication, they were very good at what they loved to do.